Hello, welcome to Chapter Book Storytime. I'm Ellen from EVPL Oakland Library, and on today's edition of the Variety Pack, we have an award winner. Each year in January, the ALA, American Library Association, bestows awards for excellence in young people's fiction, and today I have the grand winner. It's called The First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly. This is Kelly's second Newbery Award. The first one was just a few years ago for the book Hello, Universe. So let's see what this is all about. This is the story of Michael, a young Filipino-American, and he's living in Fox Run Apartments, the best community in Delaware. This story starts in the year 1999, and Michael has one important thing on his mind, and that's Y2K. Have you ever heard about it? Well, fortunately, right in the beginning, in the prologue, we have an explanation of what Y2K is. So let's get started. The first state of being. Y2K, also known as the Millennium Bug or the Year 2000 problem, refers to a worldwide panic that occurred on world as the calendar neared January 1st, 2000. At the time, it was believed that computer systems would malfunction when internal program systems reset to the year 00. Some information technology experts warned that computers would not be able to distinguish the correct meaning of 00, resulting in widespread failure of vital infrastructures. This failure was expected to cause disruptions in air travel, banking, industry, electric grids, phone systems, and other critical services necessary for daily living at the turn of the century. The Y2K scare was fueled by intense media coverage. Ultimately, however, there were very few disruptions and no disaster came to pass. And this information is taken from an expert from the Spatial Teleportation Summary book for the turn of the century, 21st century, 1980 to 2020, compiled by Maria Sabio, PhD, DST, Chief STS, the University of Delaware. All right, so now we'll get to Chapter 1, August 17th, 1999. Peaches. Michael Rosario thought, that's what we need. His mother loved peaches. If the world came to a standstill on midnight on January 1st, 2000, at least she would have two things she cherished, peaches and Michael. He gazed at the shelves of canned fruit in the Super Saver. He pulled the can from the shelf. He looked left. He looked right. Then left again. It was early. Barely 7:30 in the morning, so the place was practically empty. It was the perfect time to go grocery shopping, if you'd call it that. He slipped the peaches into the pocket of his windbreaker and felt them settle. He focused on the exit and headed in that direction. He pictured his mother huddled in the darkened hours of the new millennium, scooping a spoonful of sweet peaches into her mouth and saying, "You know what, Michael? You were right about Y2K. I should have listened. Sometimes 11-year-old boys know exactly what to do." Only he wasn't 11 anymore. As of today, he was 12, and they probably wouldn't need to open the canned goods right away. They'd have to eat everything from the refrigerator first before it all went bad. The exit was right in front of him. 1 or 2 steps, and shoop, the automatic doors would slide open. Hey, Mikey Mike! He froze. It's Michael, not Mikey Mike, he instinctively said, though he didn't say it out loud because he recognized the voice, and it belonged to 19-year-old Billy Gibson, who everyone called BG. If Michael were a different person, he might have kept walking or pretended he hadn't heard, but he couldn't. Of course he couldn't, because everyone always heard BG. BG made sure of that. Michael turned. The peaches were so heavy. Michael felt the urge to sneeze. He was still getting over his stupid summer cold, and his eyes watered. He didn't want to move, didn't want to sneeze. He didn't want to do anything but disappear into the ether. BG was in the produce section wearing the standard Super Saver uniform, the same kind Michael's mother had worn before she'd been fired. A cart of potatoes was parked next to him. "What are you doing here so early in the morning?" BG said. He picked up some potatoes and shoved them into place. "Getting flowers for your mama?" He snickered. Michael couldn't think of anything to say. Not a single word came to him. He pressed his right thumb into the left of his palm. "As soon as he looks at those potatoes again, I'll keep walking," he told himself. But BG didn't look at the potatoes. Instead, his gaze drifted over Michael's shoulder and landed on Jamar Prince, who was walking toward them holding 3 Butterfingers and a crumpled receipt. BG's expression turned serious. Jamar smiled faintly at Michael. "Hey, I thought that was you," he said. "You want to walk back with me?" Since when did Jamar Prince, who was 16 and in high school, want to walk anywhere with him? Since when did Billy Gibson work the morning shift? Since when did either of them come anywhere near Super Saver at 7:30 a.m.? Michael was here at precisely this time because he didn't want to see anyone. And now look! Michael shifted from foot to foot. BG strode over holding a pale white potato, which somewhat resembled the shape and color of his head. He narrowed his eyes at Jamar's candy bars. "Did you pay for those?" Jamar raised his chin. "Yeah, I paid for them," he said, his voice sharp. What are you trying to say?" Michael's body tensed. He felt like a blade of grass caught between 2 boulders. The exit was right there, a few steps away. "If you paid for them, how come they're not in a bag?" said BG. "What do I need a bag for?" Jamar said. "And I don't need to steal candy bars from this raggedy store when I have money of my own." Jamar stepped closer to Michael and nudged his shoulder. "Come on, let's walk back. Keep me company." Jamar headed toward the exit. Michael followed. Jamar called BG a name under his breath, a 2-syllable swear word, as he and Michael went through the automatic doors and walked toward Fox Run Apartments, where they both lived. "I wanted to make sure he wasn't giving you a hard time," Jamar said. "Sometimes he messes with Darius." Darius was Jamar's younger brother. Michael wasn't sure how old he was, maybe 8 or 9. Jamar had another brother, Elijah, who was going into 7th grade, just like Michael. They weren't friends. They weren't enemies. They weren't anything. "Darius is quiet like you," Jamar said, his mouth full. "Easy target for people." Except he didn't say people. He said the swear word again. They were now on the grounds of Fox Run Apartments and Townhouses, the best community in Delaware, and Jamar veered left toward Building A, while Michael veered right toward Building J. Michael didn't realize how tense he was until he saw the courtyard near his building. He took a deep breath and relaxed his shoulders. Everything looked as it should. Cars in their assigned parking spots, a stray cat, the one Michael had secretly named Tuxedo, slinking around the bushes, Mr. Mosley, the maintenance man, hefting a can of paint toward a vacant apartment. "Hey, Mr. Mosley," Michael said. Mosley looked up. He had a brown, weathered face, smattered with wrinkles and folds from his forehead to his chin. But when he smiled like he was doing now, all the lines settled into the corners of his eyes. He was wearing his paint coveralls with the fox run stitched on the pocket. "Michael," Mosley said cheerfully. He set down the can of paint. "Just the man I wanted to see." He pulled out his wallet, the one with the Philadelphia Eagles logo emblazoned on the front, and slipped a crisp $20 bill from it. "Today is your big day, if I'm not mistaken." He waved the money in Michael's direction. "Oh, you don't have to give me anything," Michael said. He sneezed and wiped his nose with the back of his hand, something he'd never do if his mama were here. But Mr. Mosley didn't care about such things. "Well, yeah, I don't have to. There are only 2 things I have to do, pay taxes and die," Mosley said, one of his favorite expressions. "Actually, make that 3 things, pay taxes, die, and paint 3F. He towed the paint can. Eggshell white, it said. Same color in every apartment. "But for right now, I'm giving you $20. Michael wanted to take it, but he also didn't want to take it. It's one thing to shoplift because you don't have money. It's another thing to shoplift when you do. That's how Michael reconciled it anyway. Maybe I'll walk back to the Super Saver later and pay for the peaches properly, he thought, even though he knew he wouldn't. Thanks, Mr. Mosley, Michael said. He took the money. No problem. Besides, Mosley stopped mid-sentence. There was a kid, a teenager, several paces away, wandering toward them with an unusual expression on his face. He kept glancing over his shoulder like he was being followed. He looked, not afraid or panicked exactly, more like someone who had just committed a crime. Robbed a bank, perhaps, or stolen canned goods from the Super Saver. As he came closer, Michael realized how odd his clothes were. He was wearing a uniform of some kind, shirt and pants, white, but not white. Eggshell, maybe, like the paint. And his shoes were exactly the same eggshell color. Together, the outfit glinted strangely in the sun. Mosley stepped in front of Michael. Hey there, Mosley said. Can I help you? The teenager seemed startled that Mosley was speaking to him, even though Mosley and Michael had been watching him the whole time, and vice versa. Hello, the teenager said. He looked like he could be half Filipino, like Michael. He stopped on the sidewalk a few steps in front of them and cleared his throat. What's up? You need help with something? Mosley said. No. Yes? He paused. My name is Ridge. It's a pleasure to meet you. Mosley ignored the introduction. You need help with something? Could you tell me the date? Ridge said. It's August 17th, Michael said quietly. Thank you, Ridge said. He glanced over his shoulder. Of what year? Michael glanced at Mosley. What kind of person didn't know what year it was? It's 1999, Mosley replied, more a question than a statement. Ridge repeated the year under his breath. The expression on his face changed. Excitement or fear? Michael couldn't tell which. You live here at Fox Run? Mosley said. Never seen you around before. Ridge didn't answer. He was chewing his bottom lip like he was trying to solve a complex math equation. Did you hear me, kid? Mosley asked. Yes. Yeah, Ridge replied, walking backward like he couldn't wait to get away from them. I do. I live right around here. He waved in the general direction that didn't mean anything, and then he turned on his heel. Thanks for your help. Peace out. Mosley and Michael watched him disappear behind Building X. Well, that was weird, Mosley said. He picked up the paint can. Better keep an eye on that kid if we see him around again. He's up to something. He punched Michael playfully on the shoulder. Then again, we're all up to something in our own way, right, Michael? Yeah, Michael said, thinking about his pocket of peaches. We're all up to something. Chapter 2. It was nearly 8 a.m. when Michael sailed through the front door to find his 16-year-old babysitter perched on his second-hand couch. Gibby. Arms crossed, eyebrows raised, brown eyes blinking at him. A paperback of Last Act by Christopher Pike sat face down on her lap, its spine creased. The smell of strawberries permeated the air. He wasn't sure if it was shampoo, body spray, lotion, or what. Michael blushed. Did all 16-year-old girls smell like strawberries, or just Gibby? Just Gibby, probably. As far as Michael was concerned, Gibby was the only reason Fox Run Apartments were the best community in Delaware. She lived in Building N. You have some explaining to do, mister, Gibby said. Today is a babysitting day. I got here at 7:30 sharp, and you weren't here. Your mother specifically said... My mom didn't tell me it was a babysitting day. That you are not supposed to leave this apartment when you're home alone. His mom couldn't afford to pay Gibby every day. Instead, he picked days here and there throughout the week. Michael made it his business to know which days were Gibby days and which weren't. He wished all of them were, even though 12 was way too old for a babysitter. So, where were you? He shifted his eyes away from her face. She tapped her foot. She had small, narrow feet tucked inside pink sandals. He couldn't say he'd gone to the Super Saver. If his mom found out, he'd be in trouble. But BG had seen him, and BG was Gibby's brother. Michael still couldn't figure out how the world's most perfect creature could be related to a rotten potato like BG. But these were the mysteries of the universe. Michael decided to go with a half-truth. "I was talking to Jamar Prince," he said. Gibby went to high school with Jamar. If she thought Michael was friends with Jamar, maybe she wouldn't see Michael as such a kid. "About what?" Michael paused. "Nothing, I guess." She was still staring at him with her eyebrows raised, so he continued. "Then Mr. Mosley and I saw a weird guy outside." "Well, what kind of weird guy?" "Oh, I don't know exactly," Michael said. He wasn't sure where to begin. The strange outfit, the fact that he didn't know what year it was, the way his eyes darted around before he said, "Peace out." Michael shrugged. "Just weird." Gibby uncrossed her arms and leaned forward. "Well, you're not supposed to leave this apartment alone, especially if some weird guy is wandering around. But," she sighed dramatically. A mischievous smile spread across her face. "I suppose we'll let you off with a warning since it's your birthday." Michael's heart raced. "You remembered!" She set her book aside and revealed a wrapped gift she'd hidden under the cushion. Michael leaped forward, beaming, and took it. With too much enthusiasm, probably, like a kid. But he couldn't help himself. He tore it open and let the wrapping paper fall to the carpet. "Oh, the new Red Hot Chili Pepper CD!" Michael announced as if she didn't know what she'd given him. "Yes! Thank you!" Gibby stood up and hugged him. Before he could decide how to hug her back, she'd let go. The entire world was now alive with strawberries. He swallowed. "You're welcome," she said. "What's the point of working at Circuit City if I don't use the discount?" Michael turned over the CD and read the list of tracks aloud, one by one. Surely it meant something that she'd gotten him a gift, right? And it was a Red Hot Chili Pepper CD, too, which was his favorite band. She remembered his favorite band and his birthday. That had to mean something. Chapter 4. At 3 o'clock, Michael and Gibby left the apartment to feed the cats. They weren't supposed to. Mosley had warned them dozens of times that the apartment manager, Mr. Shipman, who everyone called Ship, would read them the riot act if they ever got caught. But Michael couldn't stand the thought of the cats going hungry. "Cats never go hungry," Mosley had said. "They're survivors." But Michael would lie awake at night, imagining each and every one of them, perhaps some he'd never even seen, wandering the world alone. In his imagination, they were always sad, hungry, meowing into the darkness, waiting for someone to notice them. He couldn't sleep sometimes because of it. So they fed the cats. It wasn't a gourmet meal or anything, just cheap stuff in pull-tab tins from Dollar General. Better than nothing, though. They had a routine. Michael put fresh tins under the bushes in front of buildings N, M, and L and collected the empties in an extra plastic bag while Gibby tagged along. They silently changed out the cat food in front of building L, then meandered toward the dumpster to get rid of the empty cans. Michael kicked absently at the cement as they walked, trying to think of something smart to say. Maybe I should ask her something about her book, he thought. "Who is that?" Gibby asked. Michael looked up. It was Ridge. He was standing very still, staring at the dumpster with his nose pressed in the crook of his arm. "That's the weird guy me and Mr. Mosley were talking about," Michael said, slowing down. "What's he doing?" "I have no idea. Let's turn around," Michael said. "We'll just go to another dumpster." "Oh, wait, he saw us," Gibby said. She was right. Ridge was looking at them, jogging their way. "Hello, what's up?" he said. His voice was odd, stilted. He stopped and motioned to the garbage behind him. Can you tell me what that is?" Gibby raised an eyebrow. "What, the dumpster?" "Dumpster," Ridge repeated. "It's where people put their trash," Michael said. Mr. Mosley's word echoed in his head. "Something's off about that kid." "Oh," Ridge said. He laughed nervously. "I know. I was just joshing." Okay," Gibby said. Michael wanted to leave. He didn't want to be near someone who was off. The whole thing made him nervous. But instead of walking away, Gibby said, "What were you doing over there anyway? You looked hypnotized." Ridge glanced back to where he'd been standing, as if he'd seen himself there. "Oh, that? I was just, studying it. The smell is terrible." "That's because it's garbage," said Gibby. "Word." "Word?" Gibby asked, puzzled. I mean, yes, it's garbage." Ridge nodded toward their bags and frowned. "Is that plastic?" "Yes," Michael said. "Plastic garbage," Gibby noted. "I'm Gibby, by the way, and this is Michael." "I'm Ridge," Ridge said. He ran his fingers through his hair. Gibby pointed at the nearest building. "Do you live there?" "I'm new around here, you could say," Ridge said. Which building do you live in?" He stuck his hands in his pockets and smiled. It changed the tenor of his face. Suddenly he didn't look so off and menacing. In fact, he looked friendly, which only made Michael more nervous. Gibby laughed out loud. "Ha! Like I'm going to tell some random guy which building I live in," she said. "You ask me first," Ridge said, still smiling. "What about you, Mike? Which one?" "It's Michael, not Mike," said Michael. He turned to Gibby and held up his bag of empty Beast Feast cans. "I'm going to throw these away." Michael may have only just turned 12, but he knew one thing for sure. There was something strange about a guy who was hypnotized by garbage and didn't know what year it was. Thankfully, Gibby followed him. At the end of this chapter, there's a document or something, or I guess it's another excerpt from a book giving us some information. Let's see what it says. As with all time prints, the late 20th century, defined here as 1980 to 1999, developed its own slang, some of which evolved from earlier time prints, and others that were influenced by popular culture, primarily music. Spatial teleportation scientists should avoid interaction with native time print inhabitants. However, if scientists are engaged in unavoidable conversation, they should be aware of popular slang being used at the time in order to have an organic, seemingly natural conversation. The slang used in this time print could depend on the age of the NTIs, their race and or ethnicity, and or their geographic location. Therefore, the following should be considered generalities for young NTIs, that's native time print inhabitants, in the United States during this period. What's up? A common greeting, especially among young people. If an NTI says, "What's up?" do not take this literally. Instead, assume the NTI is asking how you are and or what you're doing. Later. A common phrase of departure among young people. Can be used interchangeably with goodbye. Other common phrases of departure in this demographic include peace and peace out. Not even. This translates to I don't agree with you. Typically used in friendly conversation. Can be used interchangeably with no way, in which the person would counter with way. No duh. This phrase would typically be spoken when someone said something obvious. Let's bounce. This should not be taken literally. It means to leave or depart. Word. Confoundingly, this typically means I agree, but is also used to mean many other things. It can be a question, for example, such as, word? The scientist is advised to simply repeat word back to the speaker and or to consider the context of the conversation before providing an appropriate response. Bad/baddest/badder. When using a slang in this time print, bad often means good. However, good never means bad. Good means good. Bad means exceptionally good. This was taken from excerpt from the Pop Culture Omnibus, 1990 to 2020, by Maria Sabio, PhD, DST, Chief STS, University of Delaware. Well, she's the one who wrote about Y2K and told us about that. So, are you beginning to wonder what's going on with this Ridge person? Who he is and what's going on? Is he really unhoused? Does he have a place to stay at night? And why is he hypnotized by garbage and fascinated with it? And his strange use of words. Are you beginning to get a hint of what's going on, especially after that last little bit about time prints and vocabulary? Something's going on. Let's read a little bit more. I'm in chapter 5, and Michael and Gibby are at home at the time when Michael's mother comes home. The front door clicked open just after 7. Michael heard the muffled sound of his mother's voice, thanking Gibby, no doubt, and giving her a few dollars. "I don't need a babysitter," Michael said to the water stain on his ceiling. But 1 second later, he hopped up, threw open the bedroom door, and called out, "Thanks for the CD!" even though he'd already thanked her. Gibby was almost out the door. She gave him one last "Happy birthday!" and she stepped outside just as his mama turned toward him with a footlocker bag dangling from her arm. "Birthday boy!" she sing-talked. Her name tag hung loosely on her shirt. Gloria. "I have a special delivery for you." Ta-da! She presented the footlocker bag. Michael beamed. "Thanks, Mom." He pulled out the box. It'd be nice to have new sneakers, even if they were off the clearance rack. When he lifted the lid, he expected to find a half-decent, unpopular design that had been marked 75% off. He did not expect a brand new pair of Air Jordans, size 8. But that's exactly what he saw. "What?" he said. This was an even bigger surprise than the CD. He stared at the shoes. "But how?" She kissed his head. "It's your birthday," she said. "But..." Air Jordans were expensive, really expensive, like $150. And they didn't have $150. Just the week before, they dug through the couch cushions looking for loose change for the laundry. "You're starting school soon," she said. "You'll need to look sharp. The only bad thing is people will be looking at your feet instead of your beautiful, adorable face." She squeezed his cheeks between her hands. "But..." Ms. Rosario wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "All you have to do is say thank you." Michael swallowed. "Thank you," he said. Michael put the sneakers on right away. As soon as he heard the thrum of his mom's shower, he went to his room, turned on his portable stereo, and walked around the apartment, letting the music settle into his bones as his feet adjusted to the miracle of the brand new Air Jordans. He wanted to wear them every minute for the rest of his life. He wandered to his bedroom window and looked out, just because. The courtyard between the apartment buildings was deserted, except for a single person sitting on one of the benches. Ridge. Michael thought of Mr. Mosley's words again. Something's off about that kid. Then snatched the cordless phone from the kitchen and called Gabby. "Hey," Michael said as soon as she answered. "That guy Ridge is outside on the bench right now." "So?" "So he has Clipper in his lap." Michael rushed back to the room to look out the window. "He has who on his lap?" "One of the cats." "So?" "So Mr. Mosley said there's something off about him." "I'm going to go out there and see what he's up to," Michael said. There was a twinge of uncertainty in his voice, but he meant it. He turned off his music. I mean, he was fascinated by trash. "And did you see his clothes? There's something wrong with him. Something's off." Gibby sighed. "No, don't go. I'll go." There was rustling on the other end of the line. "You shouldn't go by yourself," Michael said. "What if he's a killer or something, like in one of your books?" "I'm sure he's not a killer," she said, like that was the most ridiculous thing anyone could have said. "I'll call you back." After she hung up, Michael returned the phone to its cradle, tightening the laces on his Jordans, and knocked lightly on the bathroom door. "I'm going to go outside for a second, Mom. I'll be right back." "Okay," she said, her voice muffled, "but don't be too long. Wheel of Fortune starts soon." "I'll be back by then," he said. Under his breath, he said, "I hope." Michael and Gibby decide to go confront Ridge and ask what's really going on with him, and where he's from, who his family is, that type of thing. But first, Ridge has a question. "Is this a meeting place?" Ridge said when he saw her. "A place where people chill?" Something about Ridge reminded Michael of assemblies at school where they'd invite a grown-up to talk about drugs or stranger danger or whatever, and the speaker would try to sound like one of the students, to be cool. But Ridge wasn't a grown-up, so it didn't seem to make much sense. "How old are you?" Michael asked. Before Ridge could answer, Gibby sat down. "Where's the cat?" "He ran off," Michael said. "I'm 16, Ridge said. He eyed Gibby's t-shirt. His face lit up. "You go to the University of Delaware?" No, Gibby said. I'm 16. I go to Red Knot. Where do you go? What do you mean? Where do you go to school? My mom teaches me. Oh, like homeschooled? Something like that, Ridge said. I'm going to UD when I graduate. Michael wondered if he'd go to UD when he finished high school. He hadn't even started 7th grade yet, so college felt like a world away. Maybe Gibby would be interested in him when he got to college. Maybe they'd even be in college at the same time. Maybe I'll study something really smart like business or economics. My mom works there, Ridge said. What does she do? Gibby asked. She's the head of the STS department, Ridge replied. What is STS? Michael asked. Spatial. Ridge stopped abruptly and pressed his lips together. I don't know, something. A few silent words slipped by before Gibby said, So listen, we were wondering, do you live in the complex or... Ridge paused. It's complicated. So you do or what? Gibby asked. I live here, but I also don't live here. Are you homeless? Gibby asked. Like, do you live on this bench or something? Homeless? Ridge said, like he didn't know what it meant. Let's make this easy, Gabby said. Where exactly do you live? I live with my mom in faculty housing on the Red Knot campus at UD, Ridge replied rather matter-of-factly. Oh, there is no Red Knot campus at UD, Gibby said. Not yet, Ridge mumbled. What do you mean, not yet? Said Gibby. Michael glanced back toward his apartment. His mother was probably on the couch waiting for him. She'd taken off early from work and everything. Michael considered leaving, but a series of disasters clicked through his mind. Ridge kidnapping Gibby. Ridge hypnotizing Gibby and forcing her into a cult. Ridge and Gibby falling in love because no one was there to distract them. Time to say something. Have a voice in the conversation, Michael. You're being very mysterious, Michael said. I know, said Ridge, but I can't say anything. I mean, I shouldn't. I want to, but I shouldn't. Why shouldn't you? Gibby asked. Are you in witness protection or something? Michael offered. No, Ridge said. Are you a wanted fugitive? Asked Gibby. No. Michael, are you hiding from someone? No. Gibby sighed. What then? I can't say. I mean, I shouldn't. Ridge raised his eyebrows. Can you tell me how to get to the mall? The mall? Gibby said. Yes, the mall. Don't you have buses or Ubers or something? What are Ubers? Michael asked. We're not telling you anything until you answer our questions, Gibby said. But what? Gibby said. But if I tell you who I am, Ridge paused, measuring the rest of this sentence. If you tell us who you are, what? Michael said. It might destroy the universe. Gibby snorted. You certainly have a high opinion of yourself. I'm being serious. So am I, Gibby said. Ridge looked at Michael, then Gibby, then Michael, then Gibby. If I tell you who I am and where I came from, you'll think I'm delusional. We already do, Gibby said. You have to promise not to tell anyone, not a word, whether you believe me or not. Gibby raised her right hand. Promise. Okay, Michael said, a few beats behind. He didn't raise his hand. All right, here goes, Ridge began. He considered his next words. I guess you could say I'm not exactly from around here. Gibby motioned toward his eggshell-colored monochromatic clothes. Duh! When Ridge didn't continue, Gibby sighed and said, So what? Are you a foreign exchange student or something? Do you come from a country that worships dumpsters and wears national uniforms? Ridge tucked the collar of his shirt. This isn't a uniform. It's a holodrip, and it was really expensive. When my mom found out how many credits I spent on it, she... Gibby held up her hand. Okay, fine. It's expensive and mind-blowing and not at all weird and cultish. Get to the point. I don't know where to start exactly, Ridge said. Start at the beginning, Michael suggested. Ridge laughed. The sound broke through the courtyard. What's so funny? Gibby said. It's just an ironic thing to say. Start at the beginning. Michael wasn't sure what ironic meant. Why? He asked. It just is. Oh, who cares, Gibby said. This conversation is played out. She gave Michael a look that said, let's go. But just so you know, Ridge, master of the universe, if you try to live on this bench, Mr. Ship is going to call the police. Who is Mr. Ship? Ridge asked. The apartment manager. Gibby stood up. Michael did too. Let's get out of here, Michael. Okay, wait, Ridge said quietly, motioning for them to sit down. I'll tell you where I'm from. You won't believe me, and it might destroy the entire space-time continuum as soon as I speak it to the universe. But I'll tell you, because I adhere to the Said theory. The what? The Said theory. Said is a physicist in my timeline who says the fact that we continue to exist in our native timelines, and all other timelines, such as this one for that matter, is proof that spatial teleportation is not as dangerous as people may believe. Because obviously someone had to be the first to do it, and obviously everyone is still breathing and living. Gibby's hand was up again. This is like having a conversation with the Riddler. Could you please just get to the point and say something that it actually makes sense, even if it's just like a teeny tiny morsel of sense? They stared at him, waiting, and after a long stretch of silence in which all they heard was the distant drone of crickets, Gibby said, Well? Ridge closed his eyes as if bracing for the news, even though he already knew what it was. I'm from the future. Now, if somebody who acted weird and talked weird and dressed weird came up to you and said, I'm from the future, what would you think? Well, Michael and Gibby, their first reaction is, prove it. And so Ridge, to do that though, Ridge has to break all the rules of time travel and tell them something that's going to happen in the next 24 hours that he would have no clue that it was going to happen. And so he does. And when it happens, there's their proof. Ridge is from the future. But why is he here? Is he here to warn us? Does it have to do something with Y2K? Is he trapped? Can he get back to his time print? Who knows? To find out, you can read The First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly, the Newbery Award winner for 2025. This has been Chapter Book Storytime. Thank you for joining me. I hope you like this, and if you're interested, you come to EVPL and check out a copy. Thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.